Temptronic TPO4300A. I'm going to cover some basic functions and do a demo. So the screen, when the unit boots up, I've just set the default so it's not looking for the external thermistor. This way you won't get an error upon startup. But there are a couple of basic modes you can run it in. The first mode is operator. You can choose any one of 3 modes to run from. So for instance, hot, it'll bring the temperature up to 45 degrees Celsius, and it'll soak it for 300 seconds. And actually, if you leave it that way, it's going to stay that way all day. You can actuate this mode by pressing the head up button, and now it's going to bring the head down. It'll bring the temperature up to 45 degrees. The window is 1 degree, so as soon as it sees 44, it'll start running. It's now counting down the timer. So 300 seconds is 5 minutes. We're not going to waste your time. Pressing the head down button brings it back up. And the same can be done for any of these settings. You can have it room temperature, ambient, cold. If you want to change the set point, choose the atmosphere you want, press change set point, touch it, and now you can put in any temperature you want. Okay. Now if you run the set point, it'll go up to 80 degrees Celsius and do your soak time. Another way, if you want the unit to repeat cycles, you have 18 steps of which you can do cooling, heating, ambient temperatures, if you're going to really try and thermally shock or QC your device under test. Once again, you can choose the line. Oops, sorry, that's the obnoxiously large display. You can choose which step you want by the cursor controls. You can edit each parameter. So set point, this one's at 40. You can change it to 55. That's okay. It's now 55. The ramp up speed is a number from 0 to 999. You can do that too. The bigger the number, the faster the change it'll ramp up or ramp down. So most are default for 999. If you want to add a segment, go to the segment, press the disable button. Now it becomes enabled. Now we have 4 steps in this cycle. You can edit how many cycles you want by pressing that button and telling it how many cycles. So you can say 4 cycles, okay. If you were to hit start now, it will run through these 4 cycles a count of 4 times and then stop. I have a demo cycle set up, so we can cover some utilities. The head up button does the same thing as before. The head comes down. Wherever your cycle was left, that's what it's going to run to and just sit there and stay. Pressing it again brings it back up. Same effect happens when you press the head button up here. It'll also bring the head down and go into that single-minded mode. A lot of these buttons will either bring you a menu or a keypad to enter, or they'll just toggle. For instance, the head, it's now locked. Pressing it again, it's unlocked. Same thing with baud rate, it'll take you through cycles, each starting at the 300 and then bumping up to the history, the classic history of the baud rate for serial communications. Setup. This is where you can set your DUT sensor, device under test, your flow rate, for how many in this case it's right now it's liters per second. You can also determine if you want English or metric. Thermal constant is basically the weight, thermal mass of your device under test. Let's see. So you can option cycle operator on or off. Let's see. We can also load a setup from memory. I already have one created. Let's have it open. It is now loaded the setup. If you go back to cycle, you can see it's got 3 steps. It'll go to -80, then it'll go to ambient, 20 degrees, then it'll go to the upper end of this device, which is 225 degrees Celsius. It'll do it as fast as possible, and the soak time is 15 seconds each, because I don't want to belabor the surface. Also, this one has a DUT, device under test sensor, that's a K-type thermocouple that's plugged into the back. Not included, you have to get your own. So we can do a demo right now, so we'll start cycling. So it engages the head. So now it'll bring the temperature down to -80 degrees Celsius. Once it reaches that temperature, it'll start the clock for the soak time. A couple of minutes. We're within range. It's now started the countdown timer. Let's finish the soak cycle. It's now going to the second stage, as you can see by the arrow. So it's doing a 15-second countdown. Completed that. It's now going for the 225-degree part of the cycle. It's reached 225. It's now counting down. Upon reaching the cycle, it shuts itself off. If I had more than one cycle set, it would keep running until the amount of cycle set is completed. This screen tells you what's going to happen as far as what you're telling it to do. This screen is a readout of what's actually going on with the air sensor in the arm or in the head, and also the air sensor of the device under test. This is the quote-unquote device under test. It's just a K thermocouple. You can have the unit follow the temperature of the device under test to make sure whatever you're testing for thermal shock gets the true temperature. Versus for the demo, I just did it for the air temperature coming out of the unit. Careful placement of the thermocouple on your device under test is needed. Okay, let's see. If you're happy with your setup and you like it, or you want to back it up, you can also go to copy, delete settings. So if I like my demo for those into old school, goes into the floppy here. Refresh the floppy. So now I can say the demo. Copy. So now my file is written to the floppy. So done. Here's a history. This shows the activity since power up, not long history. If you want to create logs for customers or batch runs, you can do this by enabling it. The help screen, actually, there isn't really helpful in this version of software. In the back, for remote access and control, you have RS-232 port. You've got the 48 port. It does actually have an Ethernet 10 base T or 100 base T port. Those are covered in the manual. Here's the air pressure that the unit required to measure the air that's coming in. It's usually between 90 to 100 psi. Your flow rate is going to have to be between 7.2 liters a second to 14.3 liters a second. The unit does not need an air dryer for the air coming in. It has one built in, and that will be shown at the end of this video on how to maintain the drain ports for those. So one last thing for the head. The hot air comes out of this port, but any extra, as it's bound to from having a close, pretty good seal, comes out these two ports. You need to be very aware of that when you're doing extreme temperatures, for instance extreme cold or extreme hot. You could get frostbite or just regular burn from that port if you're too close. Also, almost forgot, down here there are ports for a keyboard, mouse, an external VGA monitor, and a printer. If you want to change time and date on this, basically you have to reboot the computer in here, and when it comes to the BIOS section, strike the key on the keyboard and go into the BIOS setup for the computer. That'll let you change time and date. Also, to shut this thing down gracefully, you would press the off button, and this gives you the option to turn off. It'll now do a computer backup shutdown and then close the unit down. If you find you have an emergency situation, something's gone out of control and you're in panic, this is the EMO button. You press it, it'll actually trip. There are two sets of breakers back there. There's a double breaker and a triple breaker. This will trip the triple breaker, disengaging the compressor and the heat, but still keep power on long enough for the computer to do a graceful shutdown. If you've pushed the EMO button, you have to push it again for it to come back out. So in a few seconds, it'll shut down. Now, even though it is off, it has compressed air connected, and it also has power connected, and all the breakers in the back are on. Therefore, it's still going to do some housekeeping functions while it's quote-unquote off. So from time to time, actually once a week, if you're going to be using this weekly, the manufacturer suggests draining the condensate from the dry filters. That's done by powering down, turning off the compressed air, letting the air drain out of the system if you can. And then these two knobs just get turned just enough so then crack them open, and they should drain out if there's anything inside. If you still have air pressure going, then it'll get forced out and possibly injure yourself, so be careful. Same thing here, just loosen it this way, so it's a twisting motion this way. The manufacturer says clockwise, but it's hard to do clockwise or counterclockwise when you're in a vertical orientation. So then basically just tighten them up again, and that's it. And then also from time to time, dust out the condensation heat exchange.